Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceRoom. We're at Suzuka for the second week in a row. This time we're racing the GT3 class. Now this is one of the standout races on this week's ranked schedule, and not just because it's a brilliant combination, it's also an official branded Broca sim racing server. Now, for those of you who don't know Broca sim racing, it's run by Ben Harrison, who's also one of my co-founders of the SCB sim racing community. It's fantastic to see him get the opportunity to host a server on the official ranked schedule, so to celebrate, the SCB community are out in force. No fewer than 12 of the 21 drivers in the GT3 class are representing SCB today, starting with Paul Martin up in third. I've managed to put it 8th on the grid with a qualifying time of 2:03.1, and Ben himself is driving too. He's up there in 5th. And if you don't already subscribe to Ben's Broca sim racing channel, I'd thoroughly recommend it. He posts loads of great content each week, not just races, but tips, advice, opinion pieces too. It's well worth a follow. I'll add a link to his channel in the description to this video, and I'll also put an invite to our SCB community Discord channel in there too. If you love RaceRoom and you like what you see in this video, you'd be more than welcome to join. Just click on the invite and come and say hello. Meanwhile, we've got a race to run. As I said earlier, I'm starting from 8th on the grid and I'm surrounded by my SCB colleagues, so it almost feels like a community race, this one, rather than an official ranked race. But we're underway, and we were slightly quicker off the line than Colin Lawson to the left of me in 7th, so we're going to gain a position on the approach to T1, and with the inside line we should be able to hold it. As we see in the rear view mirror, things get really tight behind. That's Colin Lawson and also Paolo Ambrosio right on my rear there. Straight ahead, we've got another SCB community member. That's JD Finney, who I'm chasing. Now, Finney is one of our members who uses a controller, so it just goes to show that you don't have to have a wheel and pedals to be competitive in RaceRoom. Finney's a very fast and capable driver, and he's a proven race winner on that controller too. He's won more than one SCB community race before now. So I know I'm going to have to work really hard if I want to get up into 6th place, because passing Finney is not going to be an easy task. And now I've also got the worry of what's going on my rear view mirror. I've got Paolo Ambrosio right behind me. Now Paolo is another incredibly quick driver. He's actually leading our SCB Sunday series at the moment, and he's going to have a look up the inside into the hairpin. Finney in front has got his hands full with that P2 car. This is a multi-class race, and I have a look up the inside on exit, but there's no chance of me matching the P2 for power. Yeah, that P2 class should be well clear of the GT3s by now, but we saw Timo later make a mistake just before the tunnel, and he's back in the mix with the GT3s now, and we can see Finney again getting into all sorts of bother as the P2 drifted into that turn a bit too wide, and he pushed Finney out even wider. Finney's probably glad to see him back in front now, and hopefully the power of that P2 will carry Lena away from us and towards the front of the pack, and we can concentrate on our own race. It's really close, as you'd expect on lap 1. There's a little more than a second separating Finney in 6th and Colin Lawson in 9th, with me and Ambrosio sandwiched in between as we reach this final chicane to end lap 1. Now, if I can just get a good exit out of this chicane, I'll be right on Finney's tail here, and I can get in its draft to benefit from a little bit of extra speed. 0.3 of a second is the gap, so I'm not quite close enough to strike up the inside going into T1, but the extra speed from the draft does catch me out. I brake just a little bit too late, and I'm heading straight towards Finney there. There's no chance I'm going to get the car stopped. Thankfully, Finney saw me coming and gave me just a little bit of extra space as I tried to position the car up the inside and take the grass too. Do anything I could to avoid ramming Finney out of the race, but yeah, it was a big mistake, that one, and I was relieved that we both got away with it. However, as you can see, it's completely ruined my line all the way through these S's. I'm all over the place now, and it's given Paolo Ambrosio the chance to dive up the inside. Colin Lawson's gone through too, and then we're also going to let another driver through. So my mistake into T1 has proved really costly. Not only did it almost put poor JD Finney out of the race, but it's cost me 3 positions too. We've dropped from 7th down to 10th. And we're not going to get any breathing room either, because keep your eye on the rear view mirror. That's Valtteri Bottas. Not the real one, I don't think, but he comes in way too hot and gives me a big tap in the rear in that hairpin. I thought I was going to lose control of the car. I felt the rear start to go out, but we managed to save it. But yeah, it was a big hit, that one, and it's caused us to lose some valuable ground on that pack of 3 cars in front. However, we are going to gain one position back here. Watch El Lento in 9th. He loses the rear. We have to take avoidant action and take the car out wide. And unfortunately, in doing so, we've picked up a slowdown penalty now as well. So yeah, really frustrating that, because we literally had nowhere else to go. If we wanted to avoid contact, which of course we did, we had to exceed track limits. But yeah, rules are the rules. We've got to take this slowdown penalty at some point. I'm hoping I can shift it when we get to this final chicane at the end of the lap. And yeah, there we go, it's gone. So just by being a bit more cautious through the chicane, we've managed to shake off that slowdown penalty, and we're going to end lap 2 in 9th place, chasing Colin Lawson in 8th, Paolo Ambrosio in 7th, and JD Finney in 6th. Right, let's go back and check out the replays to see what went down on lap 1, and it was actually a battle of the P2s that ended up getting involved in the fight for 6th in the GT3 class. Lena here runs wide into the gravel, not once but twice, and then by the time he gets a chance to rejoin, he's right in the thick of the GT3 battle. He's just let Ben Harrison and Paul Martin through, but then right behind him is JD Finney. Finney goes around the outside. I have a sneaky look up the inside, but I haven't got the exit speed. And then a couple of corners later, Finney has even more bother. This time Lena's going up the inside, and watching, he just can't get that P2 stopped. Drifts out wide, completely misses the apex. Finney, though, was streetwise enough to anticipate the contact and give him extra space to avoid an accident. And if poor Finney thought that was bad, he really needed to have his wits about him here, because I was carrying way too much speed into T1. The replay makes it look like a desperate lunge to make a pass, but it was anything but that. The inside curb and the grass was pretty much the only place I could put the car to stand a chance of not ramming right into Finney there. And check out Paolo in the yellow Merc as well, wisely running it out wide to avoid getting tangled up in that mess. However, both Paolo and Colin were able to capitalise on me being all out of shape coming through these S's. There's Paolo making the move up the inside. There's enough space for Colin to jump through as well. And El Lento nips through too. However, his 9th position was short-lived. We can watch here on board from Colin Lawson. El Lento just gets a little bit too close, and actually, yeah, he runs into the back of Colin, and that's what causes him to lose control of the car. You can see my BMW in the background running it out really wide, and that's where we picked up the slowdown penalty just for trying to avoid that spin. We're rejoining the race on lap 4 now, and things have settled down a bit for me. Bottas is now 2.5 seconds behind, and I'm just about half a second off Colin Lawson in front. Now I'm going to switch on the TV cam here, because while we were away checking out the replays, there was a cracking battle going on just behind me for 11th between two other SCB drivers. That's Nick Campbell in the red Corvette being put under all kinds of pressure from the reigning SCB Sunday Series champion Julian Garcia in the blue Porsche. We can see Campbell doing a fantastic job of defending through those S's, but Garcia's pressure is going to pay off. Garcia's just going to find a little bit of extra speed coming around this right-hander, and he's going to be able to get that Porsche turned in a little bit tighter too. There's a gap up the inside, and Garcia goes for it, and he's made that pass stick to take 11th place. Campbell's going to fight back, and he's going to have a sniff up the inside, but there's just not room. Garcia closes the door, and he's made that pass stick. Great racing right behind me there. But unfortunately for Julian, it wasn't going to end well. Next up for him was Bottas, and he tries to move up the inside here, but you can see that he just runs out of room. There's contact, and it's Julian who spins off and crashes out of that 11th place. Really unfortunate that for Julian, because he was starting to show some real pace, and I suspect it wouldn't have been long at all before he'd caught me up. Talking about me, you can see that although I'm trying as hard as I can, I'm just not able to stay with Colin Lawson. He's got a little bit more pace than me, particularly his corner exit speed. That Merc just seems to get out of those corners a bit quicker than my BMW can. Meanwhile, let's switch the TV cam back on and see what's happening a bit further up the road. And there's a cracking battle developing for 4th place between Paul Martin and Ben Harrison. Yeah, that's Ben of Broca Sim Racing, racing in his own server. And he's currently holding 4th position, but Paul Martin's all over him now. Paul's recently had some FPS issues fixed on RaceRoom, and it's given him the chance to really show us all what a fast driver he is, although he does get a bit out of shape there. You saw the rear start to step out, and that's given Ben the chance he needs to get a bit of breathing room. So what's Paul got now? Has he got the pace to get back on Harrison's tail? I suspect he has, because he put it third on the grid. It was a cracking qualifying performance from Paul Martin. So can he catch the red Merc of Harrison? Well, it looks like he can, but then he's going to make another mistake, just getting on the gas a little bit too early on the exit to the hairpin, and it spins him around. Watch the live action again, because we've just arrived at the hairpin, and it's a blind exit, and there's Paul, spun around. We just have to get off the gas to avoid hitting him. But as we all charge away, look at poor Paul there. It's an impossible position for him. He's facing the wrong way on that exit. He's got no chance of rejoining safely, so he's got no choice but to watch all the field race by before he can rejoin. But yeah, full marks to Paul for that, because you see all too often in sim racing, reckless, crazy, rushed rejoins that could cause even bigger accidents, and Paul's just done a perfect demonstration of how to do it safely, even if it does sacrifice your own race. Meanwhile, back to the live action, and as you can see, we are keeping in touch with Colin Lawson now. That gap is down to 0.4 of a second, and we close in even tighter as we approach the chicane. But watch the power of the Merc on exit. I've got no chance of sticking with him here, and that 0.4 gap suddenly becomes 0.6. Now, if you cast your mind back to the start of the race, you'll remember Finney having a little bit of bother with that P2 car who spun off. Well, unfortunately, we're going to rejoin the battle for 5th between Finney and Paolo Ambrosio. And look who's rejoining. Yeah, that P2 car of Lena has spun off again. And now he's right in between Finney and Ambrosio. Ambrosio in the yellow knows that the P2 has got the inside line for this upcoming turn, and he might well have seen what happened to Finney earlier in the race, because look at that P2, he does exactly the same again. In fact, runs even wider this time, so thankfully Paolo had given him the space to make that mistake and not cause any more damage. Once again, as we go flat out down this back straight, Paolo knows that that Mercedes isn't going to match the P2 for top speed, so he tucks right in behind as we begin this charge towards the final chicane. We're going to switch cams now and ride on board with Paolo, because things are going to get really tight here. Watch the P2 of Lena. He runs in deep into the chicane, but then rejoins right in front of Paolo. There's big contact, and Paolo has to get right off the gas to avoid an even bigger accident. And I was on voice chat with Paolo at the time of this incident. He wasn't happy about it, and looking at the replay, you can see exactly why. Rejoining the live action with a couple of minutes to go, and you can see from the leaderboard that Paolo is now a second behind JD Finney in 5th, and we're going to switch the TV cam back on, because unfortunately that P2 is going to make another mistake, and all of a sudden Finney and Ambrosio are going to be back with him again. I'm sure both those guys couldn't believe their bad luck when they saw that they were going to get tangled up with that P2 car yet again. As you can see, Finney's had to go past him. Paolo's going to think better of it in the hairpin, but I'm sure Finney is panicking now, because he knows that Lena in that P2 car is unreliable, to say the least. Now, as the three of them approach this upcoming left-hander, we've seen Lena get it wrong a couple of times coming into here. Let's keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't happen again. No, thankfully, all three of them have got through safely, but I suspect we're going to see Finney leave the door wide open for that P2 to get past. Yeah, he wants Lena to get away down that fast straight and try and open up a gap again, because the further ahead that Lena is, the safer it will be for Finney and Ambrosio to battle for that 5th position. And as you can see, they're really close together again now, and it's just 0.2 of a second between them. Now we all need to collectively hold our breath to see if Lena can get through this chicane okay. Yes, he has done. He's got through it cleanly, and that means both Finney and Ambrosio have got through it safely too. And Ambrosio's right behind Finney now. He's going to get the benefit of that draft as they start the charge down the start-finish straight. And this will be for the last time too. It's the last lap. Ambrosio's making a move up the inside. He's got the speed to get it done. So that's Paolo up to 5th, Finney down to 6th. And full marks to Paolo Ambrosio there for showing me how it should be done, using draft to make a pass into T1. Very much the opposite of my failed attempt at the start of the race. But anyway, we'll switch off the TV cam now, because it looks like Ambrosio has got enough pace in him to maintain that 5th position. He's already opened up half a second over Finney, and we're on the last lap now. It looks like I'm going to have to settle for 8th, because Colin Lawson, he's 1.3 seconds ahead of me now. I just didn't have the pace to stick with him. So there we get the notification up that the race is over, so that means the leader has crossed the line and taken the checkered flag. Mazur, who is one fast driver on this track. And as we exit this tricky hairpin for the last time, I'm just casting my eye down the leaderboard, and it looks like the SCB community is going to have a presence on the podium. Dennis Schups is in 3rd place. I'm sure Ben Harrison was pushing as hard as he could to try and stick with him, but we all know in the SCB community just how fast Dennis is. He was our first ever SCB Sunday Series champion in the F4 car, and he's won countless Friday night community races. He really is an excellent sim racer. And as we approach the final part of this last lap, we are in a fairly lonely 8th position here, so it does give me a chance just to explain a bit more about the SCB community. Well, we only set it up a few months ago, predominantly as a RaceRoom community, but it's grown incredibly quickly in that time. We've got more than 100 members now, and we race in all the sims, not just RaceRoom, but iRacing, ACC, and all the others. Our emphasis has always been on the fun and social side of sim racing. Yes, we do have competitive championships, and yes, we do have some incredibly fast and competitive drivers, but having fun and enjoying your racing is what we're all about. We welcome drivers of all abilities, from beginners through to experts, and it doesn't matter what kit you're using, whether it's a wheel and pedals, a gamepad, a keyboard and mouse. If you enjoy your racing, you really should check us out, and I'll make sure I leave an invite to our Discord server in the description to this video. But anyway, back to the race, and now it's over, we can check out the classified results, and no surprise to see Mazur topping the podium. Although it says 4th overall, he's the first of the GT3 class, and with a fastest lap of 2:01.2. That is a very quick time around Suzuka. And Dennis did manage to get 3rd place for the SCB community, and he was followed closely by Mr. Broca himself, Ben Harrison, in 4th. And as for me, I had to settle for 8th after that big mistake at the start of lap 2, but it still gave me a plus 15 to my rating, so we're up to 1646 now, so I'm really happy with that. Cheers guys, and thanks again for watching.